Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CINCILINGUA membership program live class. It's always great to have you with me for the live classes. It's always great to have you with us as members of our CINCILINGUA membership program. So welcome to the live class. My name is Todd. If you haven't met me yet, if you haven't been to a class with me yet, welcome. And I am here in Cincinnati, Ohio, of the United States of America. And Cincinnati, Ohio is where CINCILINGUA has been headquartered since 1972. And once again, it is a pleasure to have you with me here for the live class today. And so our live class here, we are going to be having a little discussion. And we are going to be discussing jobs. Okay, we're going to be talking about what we do for a living. Okay, so I'm ready to get going here. And I'm going to talk about jobs. So over here we have, looks like a nurse or maybe a nurse, an assistant of some kind, a registered nurse or a nurse's assistant. And then we have maybe a chef or some caterers maybe. And then over there we have looks like a politician, maybe a congressman of some kind. All right. So here we go with the first discussion question for you all. Where do you work? Where do you work? Well, okay, so where do I work? Well, I work here in Cincinnati, Ohio at CINCILINGUA. CINCILINGUA. That's where I work. Where do you work? Where do you work? Where is your place of employment? Where is it? Like I said, CINCILINGUA is here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, what do you do? What do you do? So if somebody asks you this question, what do you do? They may ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? They are asking you, what is your profession? What is your profession? So it looks like these people here in our picture, it looks like they may be surgeons. They are surgeons, medical professionals. What do? I'm a teacher. I teach English as a second language. I'm an English as a second language and ESL instructor. What do you do? What is your profession? What do you do for a living? Describe a typical day. Describe a typical day. Yeah, okay. Well, for me, a typical day, I begin by teaching some days I begin by teaching an online class with a student. Other days I begin by teaching one of our membership program classes, as I am doing here. This is an afternoon class, but some days I begin my day by teaching a morning membership program class. Other days I begin my day by teaching an online student, a private online student. During the day, I will read emails, I will respond to emails, and yes, and then during the afternoon, I will have other students. I also have usually this afternoon live class, and so I spend my day teaching. Around 11 o'clock. I usually eat brunch. That is the meal between breakfast and lunch. I usually eat 2 times a day instead of 3 times a day, so I will usually eat at around 11 or 11:30 a.m. And yeah, and then in the afternoon, I'll take a break. I'll maybe go for a walk or something like that. But hey, describe a typical day for me. What is your typical day like? What is your typical day like? What's the best thing about your job? What's the best thing about your job? Yeah, me, the best thing about my job is I get to interact with some interesting people and I learn a lot of things from the students I work with because they teach me. I teach them English, they teach me other things. We talk about a lot of different things. I learn about the culture from their different countries. I learn about some of their political systems and their traditions. I learn about their food. I learn about their professions. I learn about some of the more technical details of what they do. So, the best thing about my job is I teach English, but in the process of doing that, we have a lot of conversation, and from those conversations, I learn a lot. So, that's the best thing about me. I'm not only a teacher, but I'm also a student. So that's the best thing about my job. What about you? What's the best thing about your job? What's the worst thing about your job? What's the worst thing about your job? Well, yeah, I don't really like to talk about bad things about my job, but I think sometimes, especially if you've been working with somebody for a prolonged period of time, they become your friend. You learn a lot of you have some very well, you have some more or less personal conversations. You learn about the people as individuals, and you share uh, things over a period of time. And of course, especially, but but you can't continue working with them forever. So I have some students I've worked with now for years, but other students I've worked with for prolonged periods of time in person at our Live and Learn program, for example, for a number of weeks, hours on end. For a number of weeks, you get to know these people, but then they go back to their countries, and you kind of lose contact. And so, so that's, I think that would be the worst thing about my job. You get to know somebody, and then, the reality is most of the students I work with, they don't live here in the United States, and they are not your students indefinitely. So that's the worst thing about my job. What about you? What's the worst thing about your job? How did you become qualified for your job? How did you become qualified for your job? Well, um, for me, I've been teaching different things in different ways for most of my life now, and I attended the University of Cincinnati here in Cincinnati. I studied classical languages, and I also studied psychology. And so I think those two disciplines really helped me as far as my qualifications for this particular job. And of course, I was interviewed, and yeah, and in a lot, of course, like any job, you learn with experience. And so, but yeah, initially my training was in psychology and classical languages, and I think they were helpful for my entry into the ESL uh, career or profession. What about you? How did you become qualified for your job? What kind of training did you have to um, go through? Describe your very first job. Describe your very first job. Well, okay, the my very first job, I worked for our school district. I was in high school at this time. I think I was 16 years old, and during the summer and some during the fall, but during the summer, I worked for our administration building for our school district, and I was a data entry programmer. Basically, I programmed or I typed in, basically, I typed in the competency tests for our school grades kindergarten through grade 12. Grade here we the students graduate from high school after the 12th grade. And so every year they have to take competency tests to ensure that they pass the uh, the the grade and go on to the next grade. And so I had to type these tests into a computer system. And that was my first job. I did that primarily during the summer, and then I did it a little bit when I was back in school in the fall. But that was my first job. What about you? What was your very first job? What was your very first job? Now, if you had to change jobs, what would you do? If you had to change jobs, what would you do? Wow, this is a tough one for me because I have said before, if I can't teach, I'm unemployable. I just can't, you can't employ me if I can't teach. And I say that kidding, of course, because I have done other jobs. I just mentioned that I used to type uh, and I did marketing for a while. I was a professional fitness trainer for a while. So if I had to change jobs right now, I may go back to professional fitness training. I'm still interested in that. I'm interested in nutrition, physical fitness, but yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it won't come to that. I'm not interested in changing jobs right now. So, what about you? If you had to change jobs, what would you do? What would you do? What's your dream job? What's your dream job? Yeah, well, okay. Well, all right. I've mentioned in the past, if you've been with me in the past, you may know that I'm a big fan of theology and philosophy. I read a lot of theology, I read a lot of philosophy. So my dream job, I would like to teach theology at some level. Um, I'm not professionally qualified to do that, but at some level, I would like to. That would be my dream job to be able to teach theology at some level. So yeah, that's my dream job. What about you? What is your dream job? What is your dream job? Or maybe another option here be a commentator for boxing. I could be maybe be a boxing commentator at some level. Of course, there are many professionals out there. They know a lot more than I do. So, but at some level, I think I could provide some commentary as a boxing commentator. But again, only at a certain level. Okay, I'm not. I'm not Timothy Bradley or Andre Ward. A couple of very good or Sergio Mora. These are a few very good former boxers who became boxing commentators. Okay, number 10. Describe the best and the worst job you've had. Describe the best and the worst job you've had. Yeah, okay. The best job I've had, I think here CINCILINGUA is the best job I've had. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy interacting with the students. So yeah, I have to say CINCILINGUA is the best job I've had. Now, the worst job I've had maybe okay, I'll just say I worked for a marketing company, a small marketing firm for about 4 years, almost 4 years, and the first 2 years were great. I learned new things, and it was a challenge, and I met new people, and yeah, it was great, really, for the first couple of years. But then the United States entered into the Great Recession. This was around 2008, 2009, and the economy really um, suffered at that time. And the business was struggling tremendously because, well, just because of the bad economy, basically, and it affected our business. Uh, and so I had a lot of what we call downtime. I didn't have there was a lot of time where I really didn't do much. I didn't have anything to do. Now, I was fortunate because my employer didn't lay me off. But I was bored. That's the thing. I was just bored most of the day. It was a very, very long day. And I was able to spend some time reading and searching the internet and doing some research and things like that. But really, it was very boring the last 2 years, and so that was not too enjoyable. So I'll say that was the worst job I've ever had the last couple of years, and it wasn't really the job; it was just the circumstances. So, what about you? What describe the best and the worst job you've had? All right. Now we have some questions without the nice pictures here. How has the workforce changed in your country since 2020? That's the year of the pandemic, right? How has the workforce changed in your country since 2020? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, here in the United States, there are some industries where people really, they just don't want to work anymore. It's still in the restaurant business, for example. A lot of people, they don't want to work in that business anymore. In the hospitality sector, like in hotels, etc., they don't want to work there anymore. So yeah, and of course, our country has been hit by inflation. Tight, uh, we've had a very tight labor force here. We've had many more jobs available than there are people who are filling them. People over the age of 55, a big percentage of them have not gone back to work since the beginning of the pandemic. So, yeah, the workforce has changed in a number of ways here, and also, more people are working from home, of course, or than going to the office, or at least working partially from home office. And also, other industries have emerged, a lot of delivery type of industries, people involved in that. So, yeah, a lot of changes here in the last 4 years. But what about you? What about your country? How has the workforce changed? How many hours do you work every week? How many hours do you work every week? My schedule varies. It depends on a number of factors, how many students we have enrolled, etc. And so occasionally I will do some administrative work. That's not so common, but occasionally I will do that. So it really depends on how many online students I have and what's going on. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Okay. But what about you? How many hours do you work every week? Do you ever work overtime? Here in the United States, overtime is usually like more than 40 hours per week. 40 hours per week would be a standard full-time position. Do you ever work overtime? Me, no, I never work overtime. I never work overtime. But what about you? Do you ever work overtime? How often do you take time off, and do you travel when you have time off? How often, how frequently do you take time off, and do you travel when you have time off? Well, I don't take much time off. No, I don't take too much time off. Occasionally, sometimes I get sick or something, but or occasionally in the past I've been injured or something like that, and I've taken some vacations, but I don't take a lot of time off. Do you travel when you have time off? No, I don't travel frequently. It's been it's been a long time really since I've traveled when I took time off. So it's been years. So no, I don't. People would probably consider me boring. Why don't you go anywhere? Why don't you travel anywhere? I don't know. I don't have a lot of occasion, and I like where I am, so I'm content where I am, I guess. Um, but yeah, what about you? Do you travel when you have time off? I know a lot of people that travel a lot. A lot of people who travel a lot. Number 5, do you think companies should have a cafeteria? Why or why not? Yeah, sure. Why not? I think it depends on the kind of a company. It depends on the size of the company, the number of employees, etc. But sure, I think a cafeteria is a good thing for a company to have. Employees can save money. They don't have to go out of the building, you know, pay pay to drive somewhere, pay to park someplace. They can just stay there, relax, talk to their coworkers, and eat lunch. And so, yeah, I think it's a good option for mid to large size companies. I think a cafeteria is a good idea. But what about you? What do you think about that? Is a cafeteria an asset or a liability for a company? Number 6. Why do you think that many companies have a high turnover rate these days? Now, when I say turnover rate, that means a lot of people leave and then a lot of people come in. So there's a lot of in and out. Former employees leave after not such a long time, and then they're replaced by new employees, etc. That's the turnover. And why do you think that many companies have such a high turnover rate these days? Well, yeah, it's a good question, but I think just in general, people are always looking out for something better. So even if somebody has an interview, they're hired, they start today, all that time, they're still looking for a better opportunity. And if something comes along, they're going to take it. And so they come in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they get a better offer, a better opportunity, and they say, well, okay, I'm leaving because I can make more money, I have better benefits, etc. So a lot of people not very content in general. They people think that we have an expression: the grass is always greener. The grass is always greener on the other side, on the other side. But also, economic conditions, of course, can cause high turnover rate. In a bad economy, companies are forced to lay people off, and then when the economy or the particular business picks up again, then they have to bring new people in because their former employees have gotten new jobs, or maybe they're comfortable collecting unemployment from the government or something like that. So, yeah, a couple of reasons. But what do you think about this? What do you think about the high turnover rate? Do you think that more people will only work remotely in the future? Why or why not? Do you think that more people will only work remotely in the future? Why or why not? Now that's a good question, and it's tough to say because there are advantages and disadvantages to working remotely, both for the employees and for the employers. On the one hand, many employers can save money by their employees working from home because they don't have to have a centralized location, a headquarter, like a central location where they have to pay overhead, for example. Um, on the other hand, there can be a disadvantage, especially to large companies, because the the culture of a company is lost or diminished when the employees are not together in person, when they're working remotely. That it's very hard to cultivate uh, company culture, which is very important for a company. Okay, so um, on the other hand, many people, of course, they like the convenience of being able to work from home. Other people, they don't like that. They would prefer to go to an office because their home is their place of relaxation, not the place of their work. So they prefer to work in one area and then have a different sphere for relaxation. And so, what do I think will be the tendency in the future? I think in general, yeah, people will in general work more remotely. But there are always, I think, at least for the very long term, I think there's always going to be, you have to, people are going to work from offices. So my answer there is kind of straddling the fence. But I think in general, yeah, people will work more remotely. That trend will continue, but it's not going to be um, totally everybody's always going to be working from home or remotely. I think people will continue to go to the office. Um, so, all right, number 8, in your opinion, should paid vacation, holidays, and sick days be mandatory for all companies? Well, I won't say for all companies. I won't make a blanket statement like that. Some companies, of course, are larger than others, much larger than others, and it depends on what the overall package is. What is the salary being paid? So if an employee is being paid a sufficient salary, well, the paid vacation may not be necessary. The paid holidays may not be necessary. The paid sick days may not be necessary because their salary compensates for all that. All of that stuff is uh, pretty much packaged into their salary, right? On the other hand, maybe somebody else's salary is not so good, but they have some paid vacation, holidays, paid sick days, these kind of benefits. So, in that case, yeah. So it really depends um, on the overall package of what an employee is being paid for his or her particular kind of labor. So yeah, that's my it depends answer for you all out there. Number 9, how many different jobs have you had? How many different jobs have you had? I don't know. Let's see. I think probably around 6 in my life. Probably 6 different jobs. I typed. I I, I was a typist for our school district. I worked at 2 different warehouses for a period of about 10 years, 9 years total. I was a a teacher at the university. I worked at the Children's Hospital. I was at the marketing department. I've been here at CINCILINGUA. Yeah, 6. I've worked 6 jobs in my life. What about you? How many different jobs have you had? And number 10 here, what is a job that you would never want to have? What is a job that you would never want to have? You know, one thing I really do not like to do, I do not like to do dishes. I do not like to do dishes. I would not want to be a dishwasher at a restaurant, for example. That is a job I would not want to have. I don't like to do my own dishes. So I would not like to do other people's dishes, people whom I do not know. So, yeah, I would not want to be a dishwasher. What about you? What is a job that you would never want to have? Everybody, I thank you for attending this CINCILINGUA membership live class. It's always a pleasure to have you with us for the live classes. It's always a pleasure to have you with us as members of our membership program. I encourage you to check out everything you have available on the website. You have a number of resources there, and I encourage you all just to stay immersed in the language. Use those resources. They're there for you. They are accessible to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as you're members. So on that, everybody, my name is Todd. I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio of the United States of America, and I will be looking forward to seeing you all again next time. And on that, I wish you all a wonderful remainder of your day. Bye-bye.